My great group great grandma was a motorcycle mechanic during the 1789 French Revolution. I know. And she was extremely well known for saying, "You can't make le motorcycle YouTube review, yeah, until you read in le motorcycle for 40,000 kilometers." Very well known. So here goes. Great. Here goes. To make you proud, I've now clocked up 40,000 kilometers on this bike. And it's time to share my review of the Suzuki Dr650. You roll that introduction, guys. Just so we know we're talking about the same thing, let's bring up some specs. So the Dr650 has a single cylinder 644cc air-cooled engine. It makes about 43 horsepower-ish, maybe? I don't know. It's a 4-stroke motorcycle, weighs about 166 kilograms. It has 5 gears. Stock, it has a 13-litre tank. And electric start, which all bikes have now, but this bike hasn't changed since 1996, and prior to that it was only slightly different. There's a lot more specs. I'm going to put some specs up on the screen now. If you're interested, you can pause the video just now. I'll give you another 3, 2, 1. So the pros of this bike. My favourite part about this motorcycle is that it's a blank canvas. You can turn a stock Dr650 into all sorts of motorcycle. Here, have a look at this. Jump on your computer and Google Dr650 adventure bike. And look at the amazing, majestic vehicles that people have turned a stock Dr650 into. Dr650 Cafe Racer. Oh my god. Oh my god. See, the thing is, this bike hasn't changed since 1996. Therefore, independent manufacturers feel so confident in making aftermarket parts for this bike because there's so many people that have the same model. The second most amazing thing about this motorcycle is that it is absolutely bulletproof. It is one of the most reliable motorcycles on the market. It just keeps going, it just keeps lugging and pulling and beating away. It is beautiful, unfathomably reliable. I'll put in some clips now. It's taken so much of a beating from me. It's taken everything that I've thrown at it and everything that I've thrown it at, and I have thrown it at a lot and I've thrown a lot at it. Call me Dr. Sweetman. Number 3, this motorcycle lugs. It's got a nickname, the Tractor, or the Doctor. Let me show you. Low down. It just lugs and keeps going through anything. Just loves to pull. It's like a working dog given free rein on a farm, and it just loves sprinting, except in the DR's case, it loves slowly tractoring through anything that you throw at it. The fourth strong pro for this motorbike is that it's easy to work on yourself. It's a solid motorbike with long maintenance intervals. 6,000 is the recommended maintenance interval. I do it every 3 or so for the oil. But because this is such a simple bike that hasn't changed for so long, a lot of people who know nothing about motorcycle mechanics have taught themselves all sorts of stuff by working on this motorbike themselves. Finally, in Australia, I'm not sure about the rest of the world, the States, Europe, South America. In Australia, this bike and the DRZ400, or DRZ400, they're about $3,000 cheaper than the alternative Honda, Yamaha, or Kawasaki, and probably $5,000 cheaper than the KTM. That saves you $3,000 that you can instantly put toward upgrading one or two things. C for cons. C-O-N-S. Cons. Number one is the weight. 166 kilograms. That's a heavy amount of bike. That's a big girl. Yes, you are a big girl. Made even heavier when you stick a larger tank on it. I've got about 30 litres in this 35 litre capacity tank right now. I've dropped this bike a lot and picked it up a lot, and it's a nasty, nasty minx. After the 8th or 9th drop in a row, your back starts to hurt. Would I drop a WR250 as much as I dropped this bike? Definitely not. Would I be happy taking a WR250 on some of the longer adventure rides? Probably not. I think it would be quite uncomfortable, such a small bike on the longer freeway rides. But the weight is definitely a con of this bike. Number two is the springs. The fork springs on this bike are very, very soggy, underwhelming, soft, soapy. They're like about as stiff as the texture of squeezing liquid detergent through your hands. That's what we're dealing with when we talk about the stock front forks on this bike. However, there's a lot of modifications that people make to the forks, ranging from very cheap. I bought a second-hand DR650 with friends and pulled the caps off of the forks, only to find little bits of PVC pipe stuck in there to space up the fork springs. All the way up to the more expensive gold valve modification. Number three, another con is the aesthetics. Hold on, let me pull over for this one. This is 22-year-old technology and aesthetics that we're talking about. That looks like a 22-year-old design, doesn't it? If you're into the aesthetics of a motorcycle, this is not the motorbike for you. If you care too much about aesthetics, I would highly recommend that you buy an expensive BMW or KTM and never take it off-road. When you buy something cheap and ugly like this, you have no reservations about taking it on tracks out of your confidence and experience level and throwing it around and dropping it 10 times a day. So the aesthetics are definitely a con for some people. Number four, there's a couple of design flaws on this bike that can be potentially detrimental to the bike, highly detrimental. Let's go through them quickly. The NSU. The NSU controls this little light to the left of the indicator. And that mechanism within the engine is held in place with two little bolts with Allen key heads. And a lot of people have found that those bolts are quite loose from stock. If they do vibrate loose, they can wreak absolute havoc in the engine. They can split cases and destroy gears and all sorts. Pull the engine open. Learn how to pull the engine open. You're not going to kill it. Buy some blue Loctite and Loctite those bolts in place and stick it all back together. You'll learn a lot in the process, and you'll have peace of mind that your motorcycle isn't going to explode halfway through an adventure. There's a lot of stories on the internet about the third gear of these bikes exploding. I only have one friend of a friend who I personally know whose third gear blew up in this bike, but it happens, and some people do replace the third gear after a certain number of years of riding. And the last one that I'll talk about is there's a little roller, a chain guide or guard sort of thing. It's an upper chain roller. If you're riding pretty gritty stuff, there's a chance that the chain can be tensioned and fling up and snap that thing clean off, making a nice groovy hole in your frame. Oh, beautiful. That's nice, isn't it? Have a look at that. The final big con that I'll talk about. Soon after purchasing this bike, there's a few things that a lot of people will want to change quite soon. One is the very, very stiff stock seat, but there's a cheap fix for that, just ripping all of the leather or imitation leather off and gluing more high tensile or high density foam down. The other one is the tank that we've sort of spoken about. It's quite a small tank, and a lot of people buy this bike to turn it into an adventure motorbike with a longer range fuel capacity. And finally, the stock handlebars on the DR650 are as soft as feta cheese, baby. So a lot of people choose to change those stock bars before they drop them and bend them. This bike is not for everyone. Some people won't like the vibration. Some people will want a bike that's a little more complex with ABS. Some people will want a bike that's a little bit shorter seat height to get the feet down. Finally, we have the PRONS, which stands for pros, cons. The bits that some people might not love and other people will hate, and some people will like. Number one, so we've mentioned a couple of times that the technology used in this motorcycle hasn't changed since 1996. That's a long time this has been the same tech. There's a few pros to that. One, a whole load of aftermarket parts that wouldn't be there if this motorcycle changed every 2 or 3 years. Two, so much information online on forums. So much information, a wealth of information. Three, I think it's a pro that there's no need to reinvent the wheel, and the old mantra, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The downside is that we're paying today's prices for 1996 technology. The second PRON, I think this is a jack of all trades but a master of none. You see, this bike can happily sit on 110 kilometers per hour all day long on the freeway, but it's not going to be as comfortable as something with more than one cylinder. This thing chugs and vibrates. This thing can also ride single trail, sandy tracks, muddy tracks, off-road, gravel, farm tracks, stuff like this. It can handle all of that stuff, but it's not going to be as light and nimble as or as exciting as a 250 or DRZ 400. So this bike can do pretty much anything within reason that you throw at it, but it's not going to be the best bike at any of it. It's a fantastic all-rounder like Colby cheese. I guess no bike is going to be perfect for everyone. It's just about finding the bike that's right for you and right for your riding style. My gosh, this is beautiful, isn't it?